Hello, I think I've got a good one today. We're going to be taking a look at the BitsPower Griffin 120 millimeter fan. Let's get right into it. A little bit of spec information. It's a $30 fan, and these are its generic specs. We're going to see how closely it compares in performance values. At this time, I'd also like to thank BitsPower for sending me a couple fans for me to take a look at. No money exchange fans. They just send the products for me to review.
Before we get into the data, I would like to thank Mint Mobile for being today's video partner. Thanks to Mint Mobile's wireless plans, it is possible to not only switch away from big, expensive mobile companies, but to also have a quality, affordable plan for me and my family. Mint Mobile's premium wireless plan starts at just $15 a month for a 3-month plan. I can get high-speed data and unlimited talk and text on the nation's largest 5G network. I can bring my own phone along and my current phone number, so you don't need to memorize a new phone number, something I have always found difficult. Switching to Mint is super easy thanks to digital eSIM cards, which most phones have. You can sign up and activate immediately right from your own phone from the comfort of your own home. If your phone doesn't have a digital eSIM card, Mint will ship you a new SIM card free of charge. And right now, new customers, Mint Mobile is offering 50% off their first 12 months of unlimited plan. It's the best deal of the year and only available a limited time. If you're interested in learning more about Mint Mobile and switching, visit my link or by clicking the link in the video description down below.
Alrighty, let's take a look at the Griffin here. Frame design, basic box, a little bit of an inlet design around the edges, some rubber padding, to help with vibrations. They're actually pretty massive, just runs all the way through. Probably just sockets on, but anyways, that's beside the point. What else about it? The back design of it, stop that fan. This strut right here is a little on the wide side, not as wide as some other contenders that I've taken a look at. So this could be made quite a bit narrower, and I'd like to see that. The struts themselves do have a little bit of shape to them, but a little bit on the flat side. This one is obviously completely flat. That one's understandable, completely fine. But they used, the struts are actually very thin. All that thickness, all that distance to help with the blade angle to make it actually fairly steep. So they're using as much of it as they can just to shove as much air behind it. The blade design is more of an airflow fan because you can see that there's a pretty wide gap at the tip. Not as much at the base, a little bit overlap, but definitely more airflow. But the blades are very straight. More modern fans tend to have a arc curvature to it, which means this will have a different sound profile than what we're used to hearing with most other fans we're used to seeing these days. The distance between the blades and the edge of the housing is actually pretty narrow once you're taking a look at the back. Obviously, it's going to be pretty wide at the inlet section. But overall, yeah, basic fins on it. Might actually be metal underneath here. The stiffness of the blades actually feels pretty stiff, which is great to see. Pretty basic fan design, not much to speak of. Has actually some pretty good features in at least the housing, and will just will come down to numbers, how well it performs in testing, and of course the value proposition. So let's get into it. First up in testing is my case simulation test. So this simulates a variety of computer case sizes, but generically it just assumes a front-to-back airflow to an air-cooled tower. So the measurement location is from the back of the front case fans to the CPU socket rough position. The 60 mark has one exception though. It is like having fans at the bottom of your computer case blowing up towards your GPU. So you do want to pay attention to which length, which number associates with the computer case that you plan on building into or that you have built into. So once again, the 60 mark is like blowing into the GPU or a really small ITX build. And these are its performance values. Then we got the 9-inch mark. This would be a compact tower think case that can withstand an ATX motherboard, but not a lot of extra room. 220mm class fans. The 11-inch mark, standard mid-tower cases, 320s across that length. And then truly large towers at the 14.5-inch mark, which is approximately like having 340mm class fans. So I need some baseline to compare fans against, and that is where my control fan comes in. It is spaced 3 parts 812x5 to 1 part 814, creating a blended 130mm class fan to get a baseline performance value. So fans that perform over top of it are better, fans that perform underneath it are not so great, and unfortunately the Griffin in noise enormous results is not performing all that well. Moving things up to 100% PWM fan signaling, and it is still falling a little bit shy of where I would want a high performing case fan to sit. Comparing against other fans, the Griffin is this yellow line, and it is pretty dramatically underperforming compared
to this big grouping of fans where I really want to see a fan sitting in this 10.5 decibel noise normalized result. Taking a look at it again in bar graph form, just to simplify the view, this is at 6 and the 11-inch mark, and you can see that it drops off too quickly. So the 11-inch mark, it just doesn't have the air speed, so it's, even though the 6-inch mark, it does adequate airflow, it just doesn't have enough concentration in it. Moving things up to 17.5 decibel mark, the Griffin is still underperforming compared to where I would like to see it compared to this grouping of other fans. And once again, taking a look in bar graph form, the 60 mark is doing okay, so putting it as a bottom fan to blow into your GPU would be okay. But in bigger cases to blow across, it doesn't have the same sort of quality of airflow as some of these other fans on here. Taking a look at 100% pitot fan signaling, well, once again, we're seeing a similar trend here, where it's just falling a bit too low. It's not creating enough grunt airflow. Smaller cases blowing up to GPU, it's doing okay, but bigger towers, I'd probably buy something else. It would do the job because you can fill the front of your case with fans and it would blow through it, but it just wouldn't be as efficient as other fans. Now, locking in specific RPMs, this was a viewer suggestion. So the Griffin right here isn't the worst performer here, but if we're taking a look at the noise value, it is a bit on the noisy side compared to some of these other fans for the amount of performance that it produces, even though the performance that it produces is actually okay. Moving things up to 1,500 RPM, it's dropped to last place. It can do better. So now we're going to take a look at airspeed versus that decibel rating at the 9-inch mark, is where fans tend to drop off, just to take a little bit closer look at it and determine if we can figure out what's going on. And it's just not producing a lot of airflow. It apparently gets a little bit of efficiency right here, where it gets less noisy for more airflow, but not much more airflow. Then it gets really noisy, gains a little bit there, so maybe there's some harmonics that in my testing I'm just not seeing. There are just some improvements that can be made to this fan design that I think would really improve the performance quite dramatically. Now we're looking at performance through the CPU air cooler, the Noctua U12A. And the first graph here on the left side is airspeed versus RPM. This is a blade efficiency graph. And the Griffin is actually outperforming my control fan ever so slightly, which means that its blade design is actually fairly efficient at delivering airflow. But once we take a look at the airspeed versus noise, we see that it falls apart. It's just too noisy for the amount of airflow that it can produce. Whether that's in the blade design or the bearing design, these are improvements that BitsPower can really hammer into to improve this fan's performance. Now for validation testing, thanks to viewers like you subscribing to this channel, and by watching my videos, I was able to purchase a radiator, the Nemesis GTX 140, and I'm currently don't really have a test system to get thermal data using that radiator, so I'm using it to measure airflow going through it and its resistance to that airflow, and right here is comparing against the Noctua U12A as sort of a validation type phase to say that this air cooler is a reasonable way of doing testing, even though the thermal performance between a radiator and an air cooler would be completely different. It is just that resistance to airflow. And we can see that the Nemesis is actually a little bit easier for the air to go through, which is not what I would have expected. I am starting to generate some thermal data. I'm not super happy with the way the testing is right now, but unfortunately, I'm stuck at this level. I'm calling it like generation 2.5 of my testing methodology. It's going to just have to wait till testing generation 3 to get an overhaul to try to improve the data. It's just a limitation for where I am with this channel and budgeting constraints. But it is using an Arctic Liquid Freezer 3, I mistyped that, and I have a couple other typos on here, but the thermal load is correct. I set it to 150 watt thermal load, and I took it at my noise normalized values, as well as at 100% pitot fan signaling, and this is how the fans rank. So the Griffin is right there with the fans I've tested thus far, so it's kind of in the middle of the pack, so it's kind of okay, at least with regard to how this is testing right now. Going back to airspeed going through it at my noise normalized values. So blue is 17.5 decibels, while red is 10.5 decibels. The Griffin is towards the bottom of the graph. Not particularly strong performer here. Moving things up to locking in specific RPMs, the Griffin is in the middle of the pack at 800 RPM, which is pretty okay for it to be, but its noise level is a bit on the high side. Moving up to 1500 RPM, it is moving up in the ranks, but if we take a look at that noise value once again, it is just sitting on the high side once again, being a bit too noisy for the amount of performance that it can achieve. Oh, and I forgot to say, this is the weighing factor for how these fans are ranked. At 100% pitot fan signaling, it is now dropping back towards the end of the pack. Not the end of the pack, but bottom of the pack, not very bottom, because of its limited RPM at 1800 RPM, but it is competing fairly nicely with other 2000-ish RPM fans. Taking a look at airspeed versus decibel rating, it is sitting outside my grouping of strong contending fans, but it is an okay position overall. Take a look at a different way to look at noise as in zone, and you can still see it's lying outside to the main pack of fans, being a little bit too noisy overall. Now we're on to CFM. CFM testing is very simple. You got a fan, you got a tube, you put the fan up against the tube and you blow air down it. What the tube does is it negates any effect that the fan has of blowing air off to the side. So in my opinion, this isn't a particularly valid test for looking at computer cases, but this is where the performance lies. So we have the blade efficiency graph right here, and we can see that the Griffin is still outperforming the control fan ever so slightly, but once we take a look at the noise data, so CFM versus decibels, the Griffin is just a bit too noisy for the amount of performance that it can achieve. Taking a look at comparing against other fans, well, the Griffin is sitting right at the bottom of the graph, so it's not a particularly strong position for it to sit in. Taking a look at it 100% pitot fan signaling, it isn't at the bottom. It's not a super strong performer. It's okay. Taking a look at CFM versus decibel rating, and it is still on the noisy side. It's just not delivering the amount of airflow that you're really looking for the amount of noise that it produces. So now we're on to value proposition for this $30 fan. Value proposition is just performance per dollar. It is not raw performance. So this is what you'd use to figure out the best value fan to purchase. At $30, this makes the fan sit into more expensive fans. And I think I forgot to mention this earlier in the video, but these fans that have the bracket at the end of them are fans that are tested in my new house as opposed to my old house. So just in case there was some environmental change that I was not able to take into account for, I evened it out as best as I could, and everything looked about the same, but just in case, I put brackets on it to denote a change in environment. As terms of case fan value, it is not a great value. It is too expensive for the amount of airflow it produces. In CFM testing, it is still ranked towards the bottom. There are other fans that are significantly better value than it, and as far as CPU cooling fans goes, it is once again not a particularly strong value. So they need to work on either the price and making it less expensive, or improving that performance with the Generation 2 Griffin to justify the price of this fan. So that brings us to the TLDR. What is the data basically saying? It's not my opinion. The Griffin, in terms of low wattage CPUs, it's actually pretty good. There's its rank, but its value is not particularly strong. For high-powered CPUs, it's an average performer. It would do okay, but it's not particularly wow. It's not. It also would. This does assume that the air cooler you're slapping up against would be able to handle it, or even a radiator, whatever. It assumes that it could handle the thermal load. But its value is eh. Small cases, it's okay. It's not great. It's okay, but its value is not great. And for mid to large size cases, it's not a very good fan at all. And that brings us to the raw data. This data does belong to me and my channel. If you want to use it for your own personal use, you may go ahead and do so. If you can use it for any sort of monetization, I do actually reference me and my channel. I'm always trying to improve fans and improve videos, so if you got suggestions, please leave it down below. If you're looking for ways to support this channel, become a Patreon or a YouTube member is the best way, because all that goes directly into this testing and improving my testing methodology, which is something I've been trying to build towards for, well, quite some time. Other than that, final thoughts about this fan. I really hope BitsPower, keeps an open dialogue with me, because I'd like to see this fan improve. This is just where the raw data ends up coming out. I'm unbiased for it. There's the data comes out where it does, and I hope that they do a Vision 2 and have the opportunity to see it greatly improve itself. Anyways, thank you very much for watching my video. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time here on Computer Tech and More.